Hi folks, we're Tassus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining us audio, radio, no pictures live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about announcements that are coming out of the mouths of the sort of central banks, like the Fed in the US and the Reserve Bank in Australia and Bank of England in England, and so, all that sort of stuff, where they're saying that and I'll focus on the Australian one in particular. They're saying that inflation is still a real problem, and the bigger part of that problem is frantic buying activity in the domestic property market here in Australia. Too many people are still buying houses and they don't care what they pay for them. This is creating a lot of froth and bubble in that real estate area. This is causing inflation. House prices are increasing. Therefore, another interest rate rise is needed to damp this down. Now, we need to just go back to the traditional concept of how interest rates were used to damp down economic activity that was starting to sort of overreach. Now, how it was that people had too much money in their pockets. They were spending too much of it, whether through going into debt or cash they had on hand, but buying too much. This was creating shortages in goods and services, particularly goods, less so services, but shortages in goods and services. And those shortages were encouraged by too much buying or too many people with money to spend. That was forcing prices to rise because the goods were becoming scarce, thus causing inflation. And therefore, how do you damp that down? Well, you take money out of people's pockets. You increase taxes, you increase interest rates, you increase the cost of the transaction effectively to make it less attractive. Then people don't go spending so much. The shortage that's created by them spending too much is then removed, and then things rebalance. That's sort of the basic. A little simplistic there, but that's the basic idea. Now, that's not the measure. That's not what's happening here, nor is it the current modern globalist enforced measure of inflation. So people don't have too much money in their pockets, far from it. There's not too much buying, again, far from it. Nor is there universal buying across the board that everyone's got too much money and that all goods and services are going into shortage. Not true, not happening. You could argue that there's a shortage of real estate, not because the people in the economy are buying the houses. Again, far from it. This is overseas buying and, if you like, nominee buying. That is where the overseas interests don't directly buy a property. They use local nominees, which because of mass migration, they've got a gazillion people they can go to and go, okay, you buy these 3 properties for me, put it in your name, but really I'm the owner, and so on. So that there is a massive scam. A scam of nuclear proportions that's going on here in real estate buying. And I'll come back to that in just a minute. But if we look at where the price rises are occurring, real estate's one. There's also in the area of, say, food or energy, and like gas and oil and that sort of stuff. So wherever you look at the price rises and increases, none of it is due to natural and or organic demand driven by people with money in their pocket. None of it is. So if you look at, say, the price rises of food, and then you look at the price rises of, this is like food in the grocery store, you look at them price increases in, say, wages and whatnot have occurred at the time, the proportion of the increase in the cost of production is minuscule. We can say there's a 5%, 2%, 1% increase in the cost of production. Like wages may only constitute 10% of the total amount. Energy may only constitute 10%. So even if it goes up by 10%, it's still only 2% increase in the cost of production. But yet the price rise of the food product is going up by 30%. So clearly this is not driven by costs. This is driven by actuaries or profit planning and the lack of competition. There's nowhere else for the consumer to go. So what the fuck else are they going to do? If there are 5 or 6 players in a particular, say, a food product as an example, there are 5 or 6 players. They all increase their prices on the same day, at the same time and by the same amount. So clearly it's coordinated, and they should be dragged into court by the government profiteering and coordinating that profiteering and conspiring to do so. But there's nothing like that happens. Maybe they'll pick a flunky organisation every now and again to make it look good. So there's the price rises not because of consumers overrunning themselves and spending too much. The opposite. Now the saying, real estate, again, they're offshore buyers and nominees. You get the ridiculous things of an illiterate peasant cleaner making $30,000 a year that has a $10 million property portfolio. No, it doesn't happen. And there are numerous examples of that sort of stuff going on. So why the interest rate rise when there is actually no inflation, or not inflation as we've traditionally understood it? If the government wanted to stop collusion over price increases and cabals and monopolies, oligopolies, and those sorts of things, they could do that if they wanted, but they don't. They talk tough about those evil profiteering big business, but they don't do anything. So they must want it that way, and they're just trying to run cover and like in the British government talks tough about they're going to stop the illegal immigrant boat scheme. We're going to really deal with this, but they don't. And so I'm not sure about why the interest rate rises. Are they trying to squeeze out genuine buyers of property? It would seem so, because they're only putting property or other stuff out of the reach of people who are on wages and working 9 to 5. And they just make it harder for them. The offshore money launderers that are using nominees and so on, they're not they're not going to be affected by the interest rates. Why would they give a shit about that? So it's not going to stop them at all. In fact, it's going to make it easier for them. It's going to knock local mums and dads. They're going to be knocked out of them. The interest rate rise will just knock them out of the game and just leave even more property available for the international real estate money launderers that are very active in Australia, as they are in Britain and Canada and so on. So the other thing is energy. Now the price of energy is only because of the Green New Deal that's being forced on us without our consent and agreement. If they did a referendum today saying, look, we're going to save the planet, it's going to cost you a fuckload of money in your energy bills. When are we going to save the planet? Well, we don't know. We're just kind of hoping for the best. The referendum would be, they'd be crushed at the referendum. That's why they don't ask, of course. So they just force it on us by stealth and deception and treachery and trickery and so on. Now, if the technology's there to replace the gas and oil and whatnot, fine. I got no problem with that. If the technology is there to replace it and it's a cheaper, more efficient, more effective, cleaner, no problem with that at all. But that technology doesn't exist and probably won't exist for some decades. But when it does, I'm happy it gets employed. But right now it doesn't exist. So why are we being forced to pay super exorbitant prices? So again, inflation in energy is not due to any organic issues at all or anything that's natural. It's due to forced government policy, government intervention into the market that's making it more expensive. And therefore, for the central banks to say, well, look, there's inflation in energy and we've got to damp that down by interest rates. That's bullshit. Interest rates have got nothing to do with their prices increases. And trying to pass it off as consumer demand is driving up the prices, again, is bullshit. So none of the inflation, certainly that I can identify, none of it is related to consumer demand. None of it. So interest rates have nothing to do with damping down an activity that isn't even there. So we've got to wonder what they're up to, why they're doing it. You've been with Tassos today at your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.